all, what's a top-ranked arena AC doing here? Oh!
I heard you've been looking for me. I don't care who you are. No one can defeat me.
Hello everyone, this is Core, and I'd like to welcome you back to Armored Core August. Today we're covering the final expansion for Armored Core called Master Arena, the final game released on PlayStation 1 in the series, and 2 to 3 years after the original game's release. Before we dive into the review, I'd like to thank HaloOwl for his lovely artwork on the thumbnail. I'd like to ask y'all to support the content with a like on the video, subscribe for more Armored goodness, and comment your experiences of Armored Core and your thoughts on this series so far. Now let's dive right into the video, shall we? During Armored Core Master Arena, you take the role of a brand new Raven, hunting after the notorious pilot Hustler 1, or better known as 9-Ball, was heavily involved in a large battle, killing your family. Which, if you've played Armored Core 1, that name is familiar with you. While on your first mission, you encounter him where he mocks you saying that he's heard you're looking for him, and you're never gonna get him. Now with the help of the Raven contact, Lana Nielsen, you begin your journey to gain access to the arena, earn your way up the ladder, fighting your way through the sub and main arena, until you gain your shot at the big man himself. With that said, let's talk about some of the development, shall we? Armored Core Master Arena released in 1999 in Japan, and 2000 in the US, and expands greatly upon many of the mechanics introduced by Project Phantasma, including the namesake arena, which is drastically expanded upon in multiple ways. And unlike Project Phantasma, where it's a side mode, it's now fully integrated into the story, and you're gonna have to earn your way to the top of the arena if you want to satisfy your need for revenge against the bastard who murdered your family. We'll discuss the many new additions to arena mode in the gameplay section, but the additional content's so large that there's 2 discs required for the game. Another thing I like is that the story's also made an even more critical part of the game, with the voice acting seemingly getting better and telling more pieces of the story via the mail system, mission request, and dialogue. Now let's dive into the gameplay, shall we? Master Arena takes the same fast-paced, highly customizable action of Armored Core and Project Phantasma and further cranks it up by adding more parts and customization, weapon types, and drastically expanding upon the arena feature introduced by Project Phantasma. Nicely, the import feature for Project Phantasma also makes a return as well. So now you can choose to load your save from either Armored Core 1 or Project Phantasma like I did, carrying on my build through each expansion. Now the additions and changes to the arena mode are quite numerous, including the addition of the sub-arena, an arena of ACs who are not quite good enough to make it to the main arena, but can be a good place to earn some credits and unique parts that can only be found here, which will definitely add some variety to the different builds. The majority of the arena content, however, is on the second disc, which adds 8 or 10 more arenas ranging from mech leg typings, which means everyone has to play around a certain style, such as the 2-legged humanoid style, or the caterpillar/truck tanky style, adding 9 more opponents in each arena that you'll have to fight your way through. But it's definitely worth doing, as topping the arena unlocks a unique leg part of each type, which adds even more versatility. Take the humanoid two-legged award for example. It offers more armor than most non-heavy legs, while also giving more weight allowance than any leg that isn't a heavy type in the two-legged category, and without sacrificing very many armor points, meaning you've got even more options available to a lighter, faster build, while still allowing you some of the heavier weapons. There is also more bonus arenas such as the Champions Arena, which lets you fight the victors of the various Japanese Project Phantasma tournaments that were hosted before the release of this game, which is complete with their emblems and paint schemes. Hell, if you beat all 4 of the leg arenas, you also unlock the FromSoft arena, letting you fight a bunch of the developers of the Armored Core series in their personal mechs and designs, which that's just a cool as fuck Easter egg. And hell, if you got some beef with games journalists, feel free to fight the guest arena, which is made up of the personal builds of a bunch of Japanese games journalists such as Famitsu. Hell, the final mode called Ranker MK lets you make your very own arena to challenge yourself, allowing you to name it and customize 9 combatants for you to challenge, and letting you set every aspect of their loadout, as well as fine-tuning their AI aggression levels for a whole bunch of factors, such as how often they'll shoot versus how often they'll try to slash at you, how often they'll try to jump in the air to dive bomb you with their loadouts. It's a really cool feature and a great way to practice against specific styles and loadouts, as you can set it to be however you want. Another thing to mention is the variety of maps has changed from Project Phantasma, with less maps being recycled for Armored Core 1, and most of the returning maps such as the wide open space station being from Project Phantasma. Now some of these maps though make it really easy to grind your way through the arena tiers, such as the parking garage. With its low ceiling, it'll force any agile enemy that relies upon aerial strategies to just get fucked, as they repeatedly bump their head into the ceiling, and the completely closed off map also allows you to push your back into a corner and force enemies to attack you head on instead of circling around you. And for some builds, their AIs will just be completely confused and not sure how to react, instead running into the wall, letting you have a bunch of free hits off on them. If you're just trying to grind through the arena like I was to finish the story, this is definitely the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, playing on a more open map will give you a much more fair and realistic challenge of the game. There's also slightly more actual missions in Master Arena than Project Phantasma at 19 instead of the 17 there, with even more map and mission variety this time, such as say a rescue mission inside of a derelict space station, which has crashed back to the Earth, causing the entire map to be sideways, leading to an interesting area to traverse as you fight through humans in flight suits and the ship's auto-turret defenses in search of the trapped survivors. Another feature of Armored Core 1 is also back, that being the focus on exploration, with the game hiding weapons and loot all throughout the game, sometimes hidden in walls, rooms, and holes. So be sure to be thorough if you want to find every single unique part and weapon. Speaking of parts, the part total has further increased from the 160 pieces found in Project Phantasma to 187 in Master Arena. This is a rather hefty increase from Armored Core 1's 138 parts, though some parts are still only able to be found in 1 and Project Phantasma, so to get everything you'll still have to complete them all to 100%, as well as completing all the bonus content of Master Arena. Once again, if you choose to start a fresh save and not load a run from a previous entry, you'll be given 100,000 credits to kickstart your run and build your loadout, but you won't have access to all parts from one of Project Phantasma, so keep this in mind. The series' multiplayer also makes a return, coupled with the ability to use the link cable to connect 2 PS1s together and play that way, which is definitely nice if you want to duke it out with your friends. Actually, one really cool addition due to the fact Master Arena has 2 discs is now you don't have to have 2 copies of the same game to play together. Each person can put one of the 2 discs in their system, boot it up, and it'll let you play multiplayer that way. That's a really dope additional feature, and and making the link cable multiplayer more accessible. Overall, if you like the gameplay and content of 1 and Project Phantasma, then you'll like this too. And yes, the controls are still the same, so no analog stick support. That won't come till later in the series, but we'll get there when we get there. Another nice thing I like is the further increased amount of enemy types, including even more humanoid enemies that aren't mechs, but people in flight suits, as well as a bunch of new mech types and even larger variety of armored cores to fight, with the game even starting to throw double armored cores at you every now and then when they usually only throw one at a time at you. Now let's cover how the presentation and performance looks, shall we? One of the things I like to note right away is the new additions to the soundtrack, such as the bitchin' one that's used on the demo of the game, which I find to be really fun. And the soundtrack as a whole still keeps the funky electronic vibes that the first 2 games had, while adding a bunch of new tracks, with a lot of the original tracks being used mostly in the arena mode, while most of the new tracks are used in the new missions, helping them keep them even more fresh. I also like how many of the missions feel even bigger and more varied than the previous games, with a lot of variety to the maps, including more aquatic maps. Though you gotta be careful on those, cause if you fall in the drink, it's game over for that mission. Reload and try again. Performance-wise, the game is still pretty stable, just don't cause too large of explosions, and the frame rate usually keeps stable. And I didn't notice any real major bugs outside the AI being able to be manipulated on certain maps, but that's pretty common in old games. Now there is a reported bug from magazines at the time that in multiplayer, if you're using split screen, player 1's radar will not show, which while annoying isn't a big deal if you use a link cable or just don't play multiplayer like a lot of people. Hell, that's why you don't see any footage in multiplayer a lot of the times, because I just don't really play multiplayer games much. With that being said, now let's hop into the final section, shall we? Overall, I feel Master Arena is the best of the original 3 titles on the PS1, combining some of the best elements of all 3 games so far and expanding on them. With more funky fun music, even better mission and arena level variety, as well as enough content here that it takes up 2 discs, you're really getting your money's worth. I really do like how they made the arena mode a much more central element, making it part of the story instead of it just being a side feature like it was in the last game, which could be done for bonuses to make the story easier, but it wasn't a mandatory requirement. It also helps to make the story feel longer, as you have to play the arena mode to flesh the game out, and you're not just bouncing from mission to mission, so you're breaking up the monotony with Armored Core on Armored Core violence. The game will occasionally pull you out of the arena to do a mandatory mission as well, though to get you back on track. Now, some critics did try to argue that the game was tired by this point, but if you look at it from the perspective that these expansions are meant to be played as part of one, and not separate sequels, then it starts to feel like one big package, much like StarCraft with its Brood War expansion, or Half-Life with opposing forces. A part of the whole, if you will. If you can find these games for a reasonable price, I definitely recommend you give them all a try, especially if you're a mecha fan, as these games are some of the most fun mecha that you'll get once you get used to them. Now, before we go, I'd like to once again thank HaloOwl for his lovely artwork, and like to ask y'all to support him, as well as supporting this month's videos and live streams. I'd also like to thank y'all for watching this far, and definitely thank all the members and donors seen on screen, as y'all's support made making this month's events possible and letting me finish this collection. This has been Core, and I'll see you in Armored Core 2, the first entry on the PlayStation 2, and its new steps into a brand new shiny engine.